Welcome, pilots! This video is part of a series that will focus on fitting pirate faction cruisers for running combat sites. In this episode, I'll be shining a spotlight on the Cynabal, a faction cruiser with a bonus to warp speed and acceleration that specializes in medium projectile turrets. In order to fly the Cynabal, you'll need both your Minmatar cruiser and Galent cruiser skills trained to at least level 2. Continuing to train Minmatar Cruiser will increase your damage with medium projectile turrets, while continuing to train Galent Cruiser will increase your fall-off range. The Cynabal's roll bonus gives it particularly strong navigation attributes, with a warp speed that matches regular frigates at 5 AU per second. The ship also has the best align time out of all cruisers, making it more agile than even regular destroyers. The Cynabal also happens to have the highest scan resolution of any regular or faction cruiser. This will help cut down the time it takes to target smaller ships, particularly if you're in direct competition with another pilot. With an even slot layout of 5 mid-slots and 5 low slots, and a very even number of hit points on both shields and armor, the Cynabal can be either shield or armor tanked. The Cynabal also has a little bit of extra EM resist on its armor layer, giving it a little bit of an advantage against Blood Raiders or Sansha's Nation. There are 3 main fitting options you'll be choosing for the Cynabal. The first option is whether to use close-range autocannons or long-range artillery. Autocannons are better for close-range brawling, though they do have a good fall-off range. Artillery cannons are best at long-range sniping, as they can deliver high alpha damage. They have 2 significant drawbacks, one being their draw on a ship's power grid, and the other being their inability to hit smaller targets at short or even medium range. The second fitting option is whether to use an active shield tank, active armor tank, or even a passive shield tank. I recommend a shield tank against Guristas or Angel Cartel, and an armor tank against Blood Raiders or Sansha's Nation. I personally fit a shield tank against Serpentis as well, though I imagine an armor tank would work just as well. And the third fitting option is your choice of propulsion module. I personally prefer fitting just an afterburner, as it leaves more capacitor and power grid available for your tank. You might prefer a micro warp drive, particularly if you don't mind spending the extra ISK for a dead space module. Fitting both a micro warp drive and afterburner could be an option as well, giving you the flexibility to both speed tank during encounters, or race to a wreck when in direct competition with another capsuleer. I wanted to test out both autocannons and artillery, so I chose to build 2 separate fits for the Cynabal, one with autocannons and an active shield tank, and the other with artillery and an armor tank. Both fits are built to run as many high-security combat sites as possible, rather than specializing in any one particular site. This is the active shield tank fit I use to run any Serpentis, Guristas, or Angel Cartel high-security combat site, including the Angel 4 of 10 and Angel Vigil. It uses Tech 2 425mm autocannons, 2 Tech 2 gyro stabilizers, and 2 full flights of Caldari Navy Hornets to achieve about 475 DPS. The Sisters Core probe launchers fit in the utility high power slot with Sisters probes. The active shield tank includes a Tech 2 large shield booster, a Tech 2 multi-spectrum shield hardener, and compact shield boost amplifier in the mid-slots, along with 2 core defense operational solidifier rigs to get a shield boost rate of over 125 hit points per second. To make the fit nearly cap stable, it needs a Republic Fleet large cap battery, 2 Tech 2 capacitor flux coils, and capacitor control circuit rig. The final low power slot is a Tech 2 Nano to improve the ship's align time and speed tank. This fit is extremely tight on CPU, so you may find you need to downgrade the gyro stabilizers or shield hardener to their compact variation. I thought I'd showcase a few minutes of raw footage against some of the more difficult combat sites. This fit is particularly strong against the Angel Cartel when using fusion ammunition. In the second room of the Angel Cartel occupied mining colony, it can break through the Domination excavator in under 2 minutes. And in the Angel Vigil, its strong shield tank is more than enough to blitz the second room. This is the active armor tank fit I use to run all high-security Blood Raider and Sansha's Nation combat sites. It uses Tech 2 650mm artillery cannons, with 2 Tech 2 gyro stabilizers and 2 full flights of Federation Navy Hobgoblins, to achieve just under 390 DPS. The Sisters Core probe launchers fit in the utility high power slot, with Sisters probes. The active armor tank includes 2 Tech 2 medium armor repairers, a Tech 2 damage control, and 2 auxiliary nanopump rigs, to achieve an armor repair rate of just under 100 hit points per second. The fit is cap stable, filling the mid slots with a Republic Fleet large cap battery and 2 Tech 2 cap rechargers. The final mid power slot is a Tech 2 tracking computer, which helps to offset all the tracking disruption you'll encounter against Blood and Sansha NPCs. This fit is quite tight on power grid, requiring a Tech 2 ancillary current router rig. If you're finding yourself short, you may need to sacrifice a gyro stabilizer for a power diagnostic system or a reactor control unit. I'll now showcase some footage running the armor fit against some of the more difficult Blood and Sansha sites. In the second room of the Malzatov Monastery, you can sit outside of the range of the stasis towers while you pummel the inner sanctum. You could warp out, bookmark the container, and warp back in a few minutes. I prefer to stay engaged, so I usually lead the cruisers around one side of the room while taking out the stasis towers, giving myself a clear path to scoop up the loot. The Blood Watch site can be tricky with all of the stasis webifying drones and tracking disruption. I like to use the Lookat command on the webifiers and align so that I'm flying the same direction. While you have plenty of light drone support in the Cynabal, this allows you to track them much more easily with your turrets as well. The tracking disruption isn't usually a problem until you've taken out the Militant Supervisor, which triggers the Commander Wave. I typically just fly away from the mobs and let the Dark Blood frigate come to me. In the second room of the Blood Vigil, this fit has more than enough DPS to take out the stasis towers before they can be repaired. And while it might take a few volleys, it still breaks the station manager's tank as well. With EMP ammunition in the second room of the Sansha 410, it can break the foreman's tank in roughly 2 minutes. In the second room of the Sansha Vigil site, I'll typically slowly drift away from the mob until my own drones take out the webifying spider drones. The artillery cannons have enough range here that I found myself ignoring the tracking disruption ships, instead focusing on taking out the higher DPS battle cruisers. You could bookmark the excavation supervisor wreck, warp out, and warp back in a few minutes. I might do that if there was a combat anomaly in system I could run, otherwise the tank is strong enough that I just stay engaged until I loot the wreck. I didn't actually try out a passive shield fit for the Cynabal yet, but my recent experience flying the Gila made me wonder if it might work. It turns out looking very promising, even having enough power grid to fit the rather beefy 720mm artillery cannons. While the EM shield resistance is a little on the low side, my feeling is that all this extra shield buffer may still be sufficient to survive any of the Blood or Sansha sights. So the passive shield artillery fit may well be good enough to serve as an all-in-one high-security combat ship. I've included all of these fits over on my website at RileyEntertainment.com. I do provide alternate fits for alpha pilots, but I only tested the Omega fits. I would caution younger players to fully train into these fits first, rather than trying to downgrade any of the modules. And that's all I have for the Cynabal. In the next part of the series, I'll showcase some PvE fits for the Phantasm. If you ever need a little help running any combat site you find in high security space, you can check out my comprehensive library of video guides right here on this channel. Stay tuned to Riley Entertainment for more EVE Online combat site guides, and smash that like button if you enjoy my content.